Chapter 1. Thea. The Choosing. Agathea? Agathea Flamma, you come down here right now! Where is she? I told her to wait downstairs, and now that child has gone and run off. Sorry, Mother, but I will not be joining you and Father this evening, I said to myself as my mother continued to shout for me. I had trained for this for years, and today was choosing day, which meant it was my last chance. If I wasn't picked to become a dragon rider now, then by the time another 2 years rolled by, Mother would have succeeded in swaying Father and have married me off to some annoying merchant or nobleman. I jumped when there was a crash next to me. Dobbit, no! Get down from there right now! Dobbit was a land pig, although she looked somewhere between a short-snouted dog and a white fluffy cushion. She whimpered and grunted nervously as she turned around and around atop the table, managing to kick over a couple of the small dragon figurines I collected. Dobbit always got like this when choosing day came around. The last time the dragon horn was blown, she ran around my rooms in terror, knocking everything off tables and stands and dismantling shelves. I couldn't blame her. Land pigs were a natural food of dragons, and just the sound of the horn put her into a panic. No one's going to eat you, silly, I said to her in a stern voice, making sure I picked her up gently and set her down on the floor where her tiny hooves immediately clacked on the tiles as she scampered under my bed. Good grief. I smiled at her antics despite myself. Dobbit was a welcome relief to the butterflies in my stomach. I reached down to grab one of the dragon figurines. Carved from hardwood, the tiny dragon sat back on its hind legs, its wings swept out and its neck stretched as if readying to roar. I rubbed the top of its head for luck before setting it down on a shelf where it would be safer. Today was my day. It had to be. Every 2 years, the skies over the city of Torvald darkened as large shadows swooped over the city, dark wing beats blowing open shutters and bird-like cries disturbing babes and sleeping animals alike. The city folk of Torvald were always prepared for this ritual, however, as the great dragon horn, the long brass instrument stationed along the top tower of the dragon enclosure, was blown. Farmer and market folk would rush to guide their skittish cattle out of sight, while children flocked to the narrow cobblestone streets or crowded atop the flat rooftops to watch the choosing. If only my family were up here with me, cheering me on. Because I am my family's youngest child and only daughter, my mother had been against me becoming a dragon rider. She'd insisted I learn how to dance and embroider and make small talk in noble company. I had begged my father for assistance, and they'd reached a compromise. Provided I didn't get behind in the lessons my mother had insisted upon, I could train with the other nobles to become a dragon rider. Choosing day was supposed to be a time of great celebration, excitement, and expectation for the people of Torvald. It was the time when the young dragonettes took to the sky to each choose 2 riders from among the humans waiting in anticipation below. It was a day that could forever change your fortune if you were brave and lucky enough to be chosen. It was a day when heroes were made, and once again the future of the kingdom was secured. Today was my day. It had to be. I dreamed of it my entire life, of soaring in the sky atop my very own dragon. It was always a proud moment for families when new riders were chosen. My 2 older brothers, Renault and Ryan, were chosen by their dragons the first time they tried. As close as egg and mother is a flamma to a dragon, I mouthed the well-known Torvald saying, desperately hoping it would prove true. I wanted to declare that I am Agathea Flamma, or more properly, Lady Agathea Flamma. Our family had sired dragon riders for the last 2 centuries, and the rooms of Flamma Hall were filled with the statues, busts, and paintings of my great-uncles and grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers who rode the mighty drakes into battle in defense of the city and the Middle Kingdom. My brothers were chosen. Why not me? But I knew the answer. Everyone had expected them to be chosen. No one expected me to be because I was a girl. They said I was better suited to marrying well, running an estate, raising little dragon riders of my own. Ugh! I snorted in disgust, throwing open the doors to the tower balcony and walking out into the fresh morning air. It wasn't that I was against marriage. Not exactly. It sounded incredibly boring and tedious. The dragon horn had just finished its mournful song, and I was already scanning the sky. I could hear cries and screams of excitement as the dragons took to the air and flew out of the enclosure of their home on Hamel Mountain and began circling. Any minute, they'd head this way. They looked so beautiful. Long, sinuous necks, powerful, each one a different color. Green, blue, and even a red. They swooped and soared over the city, skimming over its rooftops and around the many terraces to the cheers and cries of the people below. Some people tried to entice the dragons to choose them by waving colorful flags or roasting land pigs right on their rooftops. Not for these beasts, however. These great ones performed barrel rolls and turns in the air, one after another. Their excitement at what was to come was obvious in their chirps and twitters. Then a smell would catch their nose, and they followed the scent like a lightning flash to their chosen riders. No one knew why or how the great dragons chose their riders. Some said it was magic. Others said dragons could read your soul, so they'd choose the ones they knew they could live and work with the best. There are 2 riders for every dragon, a navigator and a protector. The navigator was like the pilot and the guide. Some said they could almost sense their dragon's emotions. The protector was the one who got to fire arrows, throw lances, and use swords to defend both dragon and navigator when they were on patrols. Not that Torvald had been in any wars over the last 100 years. The fact that we had the dragons meant our enemies were quick to choose peace. We still had trouble with bandits and cattle rustlers, of course. Last summer, my brother Ryan had scared off some rustlers who had been stealing cattle and supplies from the outer farms and ranches. All it took was one low flyby, and the bandits had chosen to move on. If only all evil could be so easily persuaded. There were stories of an evil so insidious, even the dragons were reluctant to fight it. My father swore the old stories of the Darkening were true, but my mother did not like to hear him speak of those tales. I had only heard the old legends once. My father's stories left me with such nightmares, where I dreamed of darkness claiming me, lost in a deep blackness, that they left me unable to do more than curl into a shivering ball and cry. I had forgotten most of the old tales, but I still remembered the fear they left in my bones. My brothers told me they were simply stories to make children behave, but I wondered at times if they were right, for we still had dragon riders patrolling against the return of the Darkening. What would Father think if I was actually chosen to be a rider? I scanned the horizon for the dragons. Where were they? Had all the riders already been chosen? Was my chance over? It couldn't be. It just couldn't. I imagined my father's face when he heard the news. He would be delighted, surely, that all his children had been chosen to protect the Middle Kingdom. It would make the Flamma House a force to be reckoned with. I wanted to make my father proud of me. I realized this, running to the balcony and turning around, hearing the telltale roar of the dragons off in the distance, too far away to be seen. Downstairs, my mother called for me again, and I worried she'd storm up the stairs and drag me off the balcony before I could be chosen.
"Give her a chance," I heard my father say, "and if she isn't chosen, then we will discuss."
He closed the window before I could hear the end of that sentence, but I filled in the word. Marriage. "I can't do it," I whispered, shutting my eyes tight against tears threatening to spill over my lashes. There was a breath of fresh air against my face, and my hair lifted. A round of cheers and shouts rose up from the city below. I felt heartbroken. The last dragon must have made its choice, and it wasn't me. Suddenly, it went dark and cool, and the sun's light blotted out. I opened my eyes and almost fainted. A dragon slowly descended to the tower where I stood. It was young, its forehead horns barely as big as my hand, but in fine shape. And a red, too, the fiercest and most rare in all the Middle Kingdom. The dragon made a twittering noise in the back of its throat, which expanded and contracted like a bellows as it raised its wings to catch the thermals and hang in the air. Its eyes were brilliant green gold, a color I had never seen before. It held me in its steady gaze, and I understood why everyone thought they had the power to hypnotize. Its great head with an elongated snout was still, almost calm, as it lowered its claws to grab onto the side of the tower, splintering rock and the wooden windowsill as it did so. Mother was going to be furious when she saw the mess. She'd complained for weeks when Ryan's dragon had done the same thing. Half of the dragon's bulk was atop the tower, and the other half gently lowered down onto the wide, semicircular balcony beside me. Hi? A rush of panic swept through me as the beast slipped a forked tongue into the air, tasting its choice. All thought of the correct etiquette went out of my head as I stared into its great golden green eyes. I got the incredible sensation this young beast was smirking at me as it tasted the air again and huffed gently into the space above my head. Its breath smelled like wood smoke mixed with something aromatic, like basil or pepper. Dear dragon, my name is Agathea Flamma, of the House Flamma, and I thank you. I stammered through the traditional greeting every child in Torvald learned by the time they were 10. The beast nudged its head forward, slowly inclining it until it was a foot away from me. I stretched out my hand, feeling a curious heat radiating from its scales. It was so shiny and new. The only other dragons I had seen were the ones my brothers rode. They were much older, with scales that had lost some of their luster or had become cracked, scratched, and broken with time. Incredibly, I could hardly breathe. The creature bumped its head against my hand. Despite the heat radiating from its breath, the scales felt cool and smooth to my touch. Not cold, but not blistering hot either, like a cool lake on a hot summer day. I tried to speak, finding myself unable to gather my thoughts or articulate what I was feeling. Me, a dragon rider. I'd be one of the very few women riders in the whole service. Before I could concentrate my thoughts, a buffet of strong air almost knocked me off my feet, and the dragon was in the air, leaving. Was I wrong? The dragon must have made a mistake. Maybe it had been sensing my older brothers and became confused. But then, the tower dropped away. I was yanked upward with a wail. The dragon had lightly clasped me in its two warm and cool talons, and I was being carried through the air like a precious prize back to Hamel Mountain and the dragon grounds. The spire of Hamel Mountain rose up in front of us. I couldn't contain my excitement because I would be one of the few female riders, and I had been chosen by a crimson red. Being held in the dragon's claws was terrifying. Not that it hurt me. It didn't hurt at all, but the cold air whipped around over my breeches and long jerkin. I wish I'd dressed differently for this. I kept thinking of my light cream trousers and the embroidered green tunic jerkin I could be wearing. The green would work brilliantly with the dragon's red. And then I had to shake my head and chuckle. My mother would have been proud to know that some of my thoughts were centered around my attire. As the red dragon circled around, the whole city of Torvald came into view. Built around the body of Hamel Mountain, it extended in crowded terraces up the slope, which was a giant, long-dormant volcano. The central crater was topped with high walls that gleamed when the sun set. This is what they referred to as the Dragon Enclosure, a series of tunnels and caverns in a vast crater that had been extended over the centuries and comprised the nesting grounds where the dragons of the Middle Kingdom lived and slept. The academy where the dragon riders trained sat alongside the enclosure, its towers abutting the gleaming pale wall. The academy extended along the narrow ridge like a picture of one of those faraway mountain monasteries. I had never been to the academy, of course, but I had heard all about it from my brothers. They both talked about it like it was a drag and a bore, but I could tell how secretly proud they were of going here. We flew over a scattering of ancient oak trees bigger than any house. The trees grew larger as the dragons skimmed the air toward one of the wooden platforms affixed to the side of the academy. "Easy now, easy," I said, a little panicked as we rushed toward the rounded wooden boards with one small red flag affixed to its edge. I could see other chosen trainee riders and the academy staff with their telltale helmets and knee and elbow bracers. The dragon shrieked like an eagle, depositing me gently on the platform with only a meter or so for me to fall. I rolled out of the short fall to be caught by someone. "Hey!" I turned back to my red beast, only to see it had already shifted and jumped from the platform, swooping down over the side of the mountain and back into the city, getting its second rider, no doubt.